Hello and welcome to CGTN Roundtable Talk, 2 sessions in the eyes of the media. I'm glad to be joined here by my colleague Mike Walter from DC and Wenwen from Global Times and Mr. Laiming from China Radio International. So great to have you all here in the studio. And the government work report, the creme de la creme of all the reports. So everybody has read this report from the whole day long. And tons of numbers and figures and statistics, and how it's related to every people's life. Let's break it down into different areas. How about Mike? Which number impressed you most?
Well, a couple numbers. The rural poor population decreasing by 13.86 million, and then also the target of reducing it a further 10 million in rural poor population. And what's interesting about that to me, of course, is these advances for China and how much they've done on this stage. You know, I just interviewed an author who talked about ending the debt trap in China. And what's interesting is when I was researching it, I'd looked at the U.S. and Lyndon Baines Johnson back in the 60s had the Great Society. He was going to lift all these people out of poverty. And Ronald Reagan poked fun at him years later when he ran for president. He said, you know, the U.S. declared war on poverty and poverty won. But I think what he's illustrating is just how difficult it is, and yet China's been able to do it, and they've been doing it in a remarkable way. It gets more and more difficult as you go down the road, but it's not this blanket policy. They go in, it's very targeted and specific, e-commerce, lots of innovative ways, and it's been very interesting to watch.
I agree with you, Mike. If you go into the rural areas in China, you notice there are great changes taking place. Lifting people out of poverty is huge down in the countryside, because in the 19th Party Congress report, we have this revitalizing the countryside as a major national strategy. So how about Wenwen? Which number impressed you most in the government work report?
I had to say the number I focus on is not impressive because it's within expectation. Like I focus on the defense budget and the GDP growth, and the defense budget is 7.5%, which is lower than the last year of 8.1%. As for the GDP growth, the government now sets the range between 6 and 6.5, which is also within the expectation of the Chinese people as well as the world.
There's one interesting thing, Mike. Remember the day before yesterday when we were at the press conference?
Yes.
The NPC spokesperson, Zhang Yesui, every single time the question on defense budget dominates headlines across the globe. But I noticed one important thing, that is, starting from last year, the spokesperson didn't state a specific number in the press conference because China has been constraining its defense budget since 2016. I remember in 2016 it was 7.6%, and in 2017 it was 7%, but in 2018 it was 8.1%, and this year it's 7.5%. So the spokesperson said China didn't pose a threat to any countries, and the defense budget accounts for only 1.3% of China's GDP. So what is your take on the 7.5% regarding the defense budget?
I think it's in accordance with China's national condition, and also because China doesn't perceive any foreseeable threat from the outside, and also China's defense budget is mainly for defensive use, not offensive, and also compared with the defense budget of some Western countries, whose budget constitute 2% of their GDP growth, like the America. I think its defense budget is mostly used to serve its military alliance, but China doesn't have such alliance. So I think China's defense budget is within the expectation of many.
The economic growth rate and defense budget that concerns you most. And how about you, Laiming?
My most impressive figure from this year's work report would be the 20% cut based on the data plan cost. I mean, last year when Premier Li Keqiang said they were going to introduce a cut on the cost of data plan or also broadband.
Broadband and mobile phone, right?
I was reading it actually. Mobile data plan. I was reading it, and then by the end of last year, I actually took a trip to one of the Unicom offices, and I got a data plan for less money and actually 10 times more data. before that, I was paying 56 yuan for 500 megabytes of data, and then after that trip, I was given a deal. I only have to pay 39 yuan every month, and I get 5 gigabytes of data. So, yeah, less money for 10 times the data.
Let me sign up for his plan. I was nowhere in that ballpark.
Remember in the press conference, you're almost running out of money in your mobile phone.
Exactly.
For me, my I concern most is the massive tax cut plan. I mean, the figures, the tax cut for the major manufacturing sectors and other industries was from 16% to 13%. Those small 3% means 2 trillion yuan. You have no idea. That's almost $3 billion US dollars.
It's an impressive number, and you know, when you look at one of the achievements of the Trump administration was the tax cuts, and you saw how it can really revitalize the
microeconomy.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's something that it's really smart, I think, in a targeted aspect. You know, you're looking at an economic slowdown globally. You're looking at all these external factors, the U.S., the frictions with the U.S. and stuff. Just stay domestic. Figure out a way where you can gin up the numbers, and I think it's really smart on its part.
And also, not only the tax cut on enterprises, we have the personal income tax. Remember, starting from January 1st, the minimum threshold for personal income tax was raised from 3,500 yuan to 5,000 yuan. Mike, you perhaps have no idea what it is all about. Because I remember the last time in the press conference, NPC spokesperson said, during the past 3 months, over 70 million people were exempted from paying taxes. So that's a major progress. I mean, people are paying less money, and the companies, enterprises are paying less money. It's actually a good thing.
And I believe the tax cut for personal income tax is going to be a lot higher than that. In 60 million people, they've only downloaded the app and filled in their information. But remember that the tax reform isn't just about increasing the threshold. It also has to do with the way tax is calculated.
Deduction items.
Yeah, tax is calculated actually. The way previously the tax was calculated by your monthly income. Now they take into account your yearly income. So in that sense, a lot of people who haven't filled in the information in the application, they still have 9 months to go, and they will be in the plan as well.
But it's still a long way to go because the app and the mobile system has to go along with the laws and regulations. Because I remember on January 1st, when I tried to log on into the app of the tax deduction system, it doesn't work. It collapsed, actually. But it takes time. It takes time to improve the system.
From the traffic. Once the application was launched, a lot of people, I personally downloaded it, although I didn't have the information immediately available. But I was pretty much interested in that and always tinkling with it.
Tinkling with it? Yeah. Okay. So, Mike, you've been here for like a couple of days. First time into 2 sessions.
Yes.
How do you like the overall atmosphere in the political season?
It's amazing. I mean, coming from the outside and seeing this for the first time, I know you're a veteran of this sort of thing, but just the...
I'm a warrior in the battlefield.
Warrior is actually a better word for it. I mean, as I was saying the other day, it's going into battle and following you. You're the general, and I'm just kind of following as a soldier. But it's amazing trying to work your way through all the journalists. You can't imagine how many journalists are here.
It's not the same in the States, right?
No, there's really, I can't think of anything. I mean, the State of the Union's the big deal in the U.S. where you bring all the lawmakers and the Supreme Court and everything in one spot at one time. There's some certain fanfare, but it's not over an extended period of time like this. And just the the sheer volume of all the journalists, and then seeing Laiming walking out of the building and he's towering over everybody. I mean, it's pretty incredible.
It's literally a battlefield.
It is a battlefield.
For journalists.
Yeah.
People lose their high heels and earrings and everything.
Not you, though. I followed you the other day. You're darting in and out, and you were just like, wow, she's way in front of me now. And people were nudging and doing all this, but you just weaving right through.
I have to admit, you have to be really experienced when you are reporting the political season, because it's tons of information. You have to select which is the most important one. And tons of reports, you have to see which is the most important one. And how about you, Wenwen? Because you work for print media, that's quite different from television or radio, right?
Yeah, but I have to admit that social media has taken a lot of our attention this year, and especially this year, because my newspaper putting a lot of resources into the social media, like the Twitter and Facebook. So this year, my colleagues who have to report on the 2 sessions have to work both ways. They have to write reports on their computers, and they also have to take videos and take pictures on their mobile phones and send all of them back to home. And colleagues who work from the office will do some later editing of the videos and also the photos.
That's our work report.
Yes.
Our work report is just deluge. You know, it's like so many different platforms nowadays.
You have no idea, Mike. It's totally different now, covering the 2 sessions than a couple of years ago. Laiming, you were at the 2 sessions like back in 2010, right?
I mean, the earliest I can remember would be 2012, and back then I was a rookie, and we had a veteran with me and taking me every step of the way. And I think the most influential, most memorable part would be, for me, would be the 2017. I mean, just when we were ready to start our live broadcast on the oath-taking ceremony after the Chinese President Xi Jinping was elected the president again, we were told just a couple of hours earlier that by the time the ceremony was being held, at one point we will be asked to leave the room because the deputies were supposed to be casting the ballots, writing the tickets by secret ballot, and as a result we should respect the secrecy or the privacy. We would be invited outside of the hall. That means nobody will be manning the machine, nobody will be speaking to the microphone. I mean, maybe for TV that could be a minor thing. I mean, for newspaper that wouldn't be an issue, but for radio we can't even stand 10 seconds of dead air. Imagine 10 minutes of dead air, and that's just a disaster. And what's interesting was we had actually had a backup team in our headquarters, and just in a matter of half hours we decided that we would change the game. We will have the backup team, the B team, start the live cast, and then when we were invited outside, we will have the team in the headquarters to carry on with the broadcast.
Wow, that's interesting. I had no idea it really worked like this.
Yeah, it was fun.
You always have to have a plan B in radio.
We don't have a plan B, right? We only have one plan.
Well, let's hope we don't need one.
And also, Laiming, you know, nowadays when you go to the 2 sessions conferences, you'll notice that the fewer reporters are carrying cameramen. Each one carries a mobile phone, because we're in the age of new media and digital transformation. We're using different technologies, digital technologies, devices to cover the session. I remember yesterday when we were at the Great Hall of People, I saw a girl wearing a 3D glasses.
Wow.
She was marching through the Great Hall of People, and everyone is taking picture of her. Jeez. I have no idea. She told me that she's doing a live stream broadcast through the 3D glasses. I have no idea what it is all about.
Well, and while you're saying that, I'm watching this little camera that's a little bit bigger than this, moving back and forth. I mean, technology has changed so much in this business. It's incredible. And to your point, you and I were live yesterday, and Nathan King was at the back of the room, just shoved back there with all the other people, but he's tweeting away and sending pictures, and you know, you have to be on all the different platforms nowadays to be effective.
And you have to record like every details and interesting stuff on the social platform.
And the information's coming at you like this, you know.
You're right.
And you got to keep punching out there, you know.
You were really excited when you see the spokesperson like this close.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Right.
Who would think a foreign reporter would be that close to? I mean, at that news conference, and I wouldn't be if it wasn't for you, because again, I had to follow the general in there.
That's what I wanted to say. And also, Mike, tell us about how the U.S. media see the 2 sessions, China's political season. Is it dominating some of the headlines? I mean, the important meetings.
You know, it's funny, because I think you and I were talking about this the other day. The U.S. is just fixated on that one number, the GDP, and that tends to get all the headlines. And then I don't think really there's a clear understanding of how this works. And rather than dive in and try and understand it, they just say it's a rubber stamp for the
all the time.
And that's an easy way to dismiss it. I think it's also lazy journalism, and that's what you see a lot in the Western press.
I saw a report from CNN this afternoon, and one journalist in Beijing, he's covering the 2 sessions. He said the figures and the growth target is fake. He said China never realized this figure. It's all fake. I mean, that's sometimes the angle of the foreign media viewing the two sessions.
Generally, you know, unfortunately, it's never nuanced. It's always negative, is the way I see it. And that's the benefit. I mean, that's the benefit of us. You know, CGTN America. One of the great things about working for
providing the perspective.
You know, and I think that what I like about what we do, I think we're a bridge. You know, it's a bridge of understanding. You know, I think people in China perhaps have a better understanding of the United States.
Right.
People in the United States have a better understanding of China. And you're not going to get that with somebody who says rubber stamp, who doesn't want to dig deep and understand how the two sessions works.
You have to break up your stereotypes when you see different things.
Absolutely.
And Wenwen, how about in the print media? How do you write these journals or different commentaries on this important meeting like this? Do you have any other guiding principles when it comes to print media?
I have to say no, there's no specific guiding principle, but if I am to write a commentary on the two sessions, I will do a lot of research and listen to my colleagues who report on that, and based on my own observation, then I will write the commentary. And one thing impresses me most is that I covered the two sessions back in 2010, and at that time I found there were not many foreign journalists reporting on that, and I was surrounded by a group of African journalists at that time. But I think these years there are more and more Western journalists reporting on that and are more interested in it than Chinese journalists. Just now you said they think the Chinese statistics are fake.
Or fake.
Yeah. But why are they chasing after the two sessions? They are still interested in Chinese politics and the economy. I think that's the advancement of China.
I think there are many sensitive questions raised during the press conferences, like the Belt and Road debt trap and China-U.S. relations and national defense budget. Those are very sensitive questions the spokesperson is not avoiding right now.
No.
Actually,
and even today, I would say that there is no avoidance talking about, a lot about the risks that are out there, but Li Keqiang saying, you know, turning risks into opportunities. You know, I don't think they're shying away from some of the issues that are out there.
And risks actually stressed many times.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So
the interesting thing, though, about the Western journalists, watching them in the hall, they really struggle with CPPCC. They just
every
CCPC. Oh, geez. I saw one guy doing it about 4 times yesterday, and he finally did it right, and then he messed up the next line, and he's like, I got that CPPCC, okay, but I
Did you notice that a lot of female journalists are wearing red jackets? You know why? Because they try to fight a chance to raise questions. People wear red and yellow, blue a lot. That's why I wear white. So
there's a strategy to all of this.
It's a strategy. I mean,
wow.
in a conference like this, you have to. Each reporter has to use some technical point to strike the attention of the spokesperson. Yeah. And also, Mike, this time I noticed that you talked to many journalists, foreign journalists from different countries. So, what do they see about China's two sessions?
Well, I think it's, again, you know, it's an economic powerhouse. If China slows down, obviously that has a ripple effect throughout the global economy. So I think that's of interest. And clearly, you know, when you're talking about journalists coming from the African continent, the Belt and Road, obviously a great deal of interest there as well. A lot of these projects very important on the continent as well.
Laiming, how about your coverage in the two sessions this time?
I've just finished reading the government work report. I mean, my job mostly is based in the studio, but we do have reporters, I mean, trying to grab a hold on an NBC deputy coming from Shanghai. He's a delivery guy, and then last time I talked to her, she hasn't had any luck in catching up with her, so maybe you could share some secrets to how we could get a hold on these NBC deputies. And also to go back to the question about media organizations trying to come up with all kinds of new technologies in coverage. I think it's easier for you guys who are originally in TV, who are used to this new media featuring graphics and also speaking, presenting to a camera. Whereas I think Wenwen and I mean, especially people like me, I mean, used to, doing radio with this face, and now having suddenly all of a sudden having to stick a face and all of that.
I mean, TV personality and a radio personality or print personality is so different. I mean, TV people have to be always standing by for different lives, different televised broadcast.
Well, you know, it's interesting. I worked at USA Today, so I worked with print colleagues, and I always said that it would be interesting. We'd be at the same news conference, and they'd just be absorbing all of this stuff, and I'd be sitting there going, "Well, I can't use that. I can't use that because you can print so much more.
Exactly.
You know, we only have a minute and a half to tell a story. You know,
exactly.
You've got to really kind of get just the nuggets in there." I always kind of would envy them. I mean, if they're able to absorb all this stuff, we've got to get rid of so much of it. Just really kind of distill it down to the essence, basically.
Remember to follow us on various CGTN platforms, Facebook, Twitter, CGTN app, and also follow us on China Plus News, China News Plus, Facebook and Twitter. And one topic in the government work report, that is innovation and opening up, never has been stressed more in previous ones. Because the Premier said again and again, China will become more and more open. In terms of providing business environment, we have the Foreign Investment Law, which is considered to be the most significant since China joins the World Trade Organization in terms of opening up in the economic front. And we also have seen our FTA zone in Shanghai. So that's all China's stance to open up to the outside world.
Well, the foreign investment law, it was interesting listening at the news conference the other day that, that they had these 3 laws on the books, and basically just being very candid that they're antiquated, they need to be updated, and that this is going to make it much more open, more transparent, and really kind of, I think, for at least business facilities in the West, in the U.S., this is the kind of message they're looking for. I mean, they really are. They've been. When are they going to open up? When are we going to see more transparency? I think this is going to go a long way. I think it kind of easing some of those concerns in the West.
I noticed that the foreign media spoke positively about this foreign investment law because it streamlines 3 existing laws and actually removed some of the items on the negative list that previously the foreign companies are barred from operating, and also protect the intellectual property rights of some foreign companies, and if it banned forced technology transfer. Those are all the sensitive topics that
those are the things that Donald Trump and his team of economic advisors have been hammering away at. So I would think they'd be rejoicing about this. And perhaps maybe that's why we'll see a deal.
And then there comes another question. They're also criticizing how the law can be implemented in full. That's another question. Here comes all the questions.
As I like to say, they move the goalposts. We want this, and then you do that, and then they move the goalposts.
They move another goal.
Now wait a minute.
It's always good. I mean, to have this criticism from the international arena, because only criticism can make us move forward.
It's true.
And I remember last time in the 19th Party Congress, China model has been raised over and over again. People saying that the China model have been overstated. And one commentator from CGTN, Dr. Lawrence, I think he said, what is China model? China model doesn't mean the model comes from China. It means the model doesn't have to come from outside. You have to find the solution within your own infrastructure, your economy, your religion, culture, all this stuff.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Right.
I guess you'd agree with that too.
Yeah, that's why China always said that it has to stick to its own reforms and its own path, regardless of what the Western path is.
It's totally different. No one imitates the other. I mean, we've got each other's own path.
And for that matter, I guess one more interesting point, or one more interesting figure from this report would be the 100 million yuan allocated from the surplus unemployment insurance funding and be dedicated into the training of people who are unemployed so that they get the skills they need to find their new jobs. I mean, that's important here in this country.
Well, that's something that, I think we're all seeing that. I think we're seeing that in the West, too. I mean, the going and working in the coal mine, that's what your grandfather did, and that's what your dad did, and that's what you were going to do. You can't do that anymore. And you've got to, there's got to be retraining because the innovation's just taking over. I mean, some of these jobs that the past, they're
the
gone.
AI has been written into China's legislation process. Remember the NPC spokesperson, he said China is going to begin the legislation on AI-related laws and regulations because he admits we are faced with new challenges. Some are good, some are bad, some of them we don't know yet.
Well, you hear about self-driving cars, and you don't even think about this, but what about truck drivers? You were talking about careers. You're a truck driver, but self-driving truck, the truck driver job goes away. I mean, there's so many different jobs that can. So you have to keep thinking about where do you move these people that have been trained to do this job into new jobs, and you can't really even see into the future how things are going to change. But it's going to explode. 5G,
artificial intelligence,
yes.
Everybody's talking about it.
Absolutely. And
how many people really know about it?
Yeah, and you don't know is that 5 years out? Is it longer than that? But if you're not thinking about it in the government, then all of a sudden you've got all these people displaced, and they're not very happy about it.
But it's always good to know the government is moving. I mean,
absolutely.
Both in the legislation and operation, they're making efforts to get adapted to the new trends, right? So both of you, both Laiming and Wenwen, we're now officially in the 2 sessions time. We have 10 days of tons of information, press conference to digest. What is your expectations in the coming weeks?
You mean what will be going on during the 2 sessions? I'd like to hear more, the voices of more deputies and members be heard, and I'd like to hear more proposals, interesting proposals that matter to people's lives will be coming out.
And on a personal note, I believe, I hope the press conference by Foreign Minister Wang, I think it's Wang Yi,
yes.
on March the 5th, on March the 8th, that's going to, I hope everything goes all right with all my live cast.
This year, a lot of hot topics on China's foreign diplomacy.
Yeah, absolutely.
North Korea and
China, denuclearization
US.
that came up yesterday.
Right.
China, U.S. It looks like maybe.
You know what? Minister Wang likes CGTN very much.
Okay.
He actually answered questions from CGTN from the previous years.
That's because
and
you wore the white, right?
No, it's not me. It's my colleagues. And Minister Wang said he watches CGTN. It's a good platform. Everything. So hopefully this year we also get a chance to raise a question in a press conference.
Well, if you're there, I'll put my money on you. You'll get right up to the front.
I have your word for it. And also, Mike, so what is your anticipation on the coming sessions? Which are the press conferences you're looking forward to?
I always am interested, obviously, because, we're in the U.S. and we're interested in foreign policy, Wang Yi as well. And denuclearization, of course, clearly very important. I think
Premier's conference.
Yes, absolutely. And then, I do think it's going to be interesting to see what happens later this month if President Xi goes to Mar-a-Lago and there is a deal done. Does that really ease the tensions? Or, is there always going to be some kind of more tension than what we saw in the past? There's always been this, at least in the Obama administration, there's areas where we can cooperate, and then there's areas where we can compete. It doesn't seem like in the in the Trump administration, you hear cooperate, compete. Right. It's more competition. So I'm going to wonder when the dust settles, how does the playing field look after all of this is said and done?
Exactly. And Wenwen, what about you?
I think because my work relates to also diplomacy, and I'd also like to hear what Foreign Minister Wang Yi said all about it, like the Korean Peninsula nuclear issue and China-U.S. relations, the trade war. Because I think in the past, China-U.S. relations are characterized as cooperating rivals, but nowadays it has become competing rivals. So it's interesting to hear what Foreign Minister Wang says.
All right, that's all for today's CGTN Roundtable Talk. We'll bring more discussions on the 2 sessions in the eyes of the media.
We ask.
We listen. We talk to lawmakers
and average people alike.
We report.
We probe. We interpret the new laws and policies coming out of China's top legislature.
CGTN is fully geared up to offer you a front row seat
at the annual sessions of China's top legislature.
and advisory bodies, the NPC and CPPCC.